Good afternoon. I look forward to meet the EU defense ministers and to discuss different timely issues like the situation on the border between Poland and Belarus, Ukraine, but also NATO-EU cooperation. On the issue of the situation on the border between Belarus and Poland, but also on the border between Belarus and two other NATO allies, Lithuania and Latvia, of course, we are deeply concerned about the way the Lukashenko regime is using vulnerable migrants as a hybrid tactic against other countries, and this is actually putting the life of the migrants at risk, and it is a way of using people, instrumentalizing people in hybrid tactics against other countries. So we follow this very closely, and we stand in solidarity with Poland and other allies affected, and we are ready also to continue to support and consult closely with the allies involved. On Ukraine, we are watching closely the military build-up by Russia. We see unusual large forces and concentration of forces close to Ukraine's border. We have seen this before, and we think it is extremely important now to send a clear message to Russia about reducing tensions, be transparent, and avoid any type of escalation of the situation in and around Ukraine. NATO allies will continue to monitor closely. We will continue to provide political and practical support to Ukraine. And of course, we also send a very clear message of resolve in protecting all allies in the region. Then on NATO-EU cooperation, we are welcoming that over the last years we have been able to strengthen and to lift NATO-EU cooperation up to unprecedented levels. I look forward to discuss how we can further strengthen NATO-EU cooperation with the ministers in a meeting today. I think we should also look into new areas such as disruptive technologies, resilience, but also the security consequences of climate change. So there are many issues to discuss. I look forward to meet the EU defense ministers later on.
Mr. Secretary General, what is happening in Ukraine?
Yeah, I do say that.
Thank you. With regard to Russia, Mr. Stoltenberg, is trying to exploit and know the weakness in the West? And what exactly can you deliver besides the strong message? What can you do exactly as NATO with regard to Ukraine?
NATO allies send a very clear message of support to Ukraine, and not only words but also in deeds. We provide political support and we provide practical support. NATO allies, as for instance United States, Canada, United Kingdom, also Turkey and other allies, also European allies, provide support to Ukraine. And we do that because we support Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, and we also have very close consultations with the Ukrainian leadership. I spoke recently with President Zelensky. I met on Monday with Foreign Minister Kuleba, and we continue to work closely with Ukraine and also provide political and practical support. We are monitoring the situation in the region, and then, of course, as a direct consequence of the use of military force against Ukraine by Russia, first by illegally annexing Crimea, and then later on by supporting the militants in Donbas in eastern Ukraine, NATO allies have implemented the biggest reinforcement of our collective defense since the end of the Cold War, with increased military presence in the eastern part of the alliance, with battle groups in the Baltic countries, with increased presence in the Black Sea region, and also by increasing the readiness of our forces. So this sends a very clear message to Russia about the commitment, about the resolve of NATO allies to protect all NATO allies, also of course in the eastern part of the alliance.
Mr. Secretary General, you provide Georgia Riga summit. Can we wait something more concrete? Maybe it's time to more active measures than just statements and call on Russia.
Well, as we work very closely with Georgia and Ukraine, they are close partners. We provide support, but we also appreciate that the fact that we are working closely with them, not least in the Black Sea region, is good for Georgia and Ukraine, but it's also good for NATO allies because the Black Sea region is of strategic importance for NATO. And again, NATO allies provide support, capacity building, training, both to Ukraine and Georgia. And I expect allies, when they meet at the summit next June, but also at the foreign ministerial meeting in Riga next month, that they will reiterate their strong support to both our close partners.
Nicolas Brevered, French newspaper Sud-Ouest on Twitch. One question of the strategic compass. I think you received the document of Borrell. What is your regards on this strategic review of the European Union on defense? And what is your vision or your opinion on the new initiative of Europe of a quick force, quick reaction force, or quick capability force? It is a competitor or it is a contributor to European Euro-Atlantic security?
Also, NATO welcomes EU efforts on defense and any meaningful effort by European allies on defense requires more spending. And NATO is the organization that has really put the need to increase defense spending on top of our agenda. We made a decision at the NATO summit in 2014 where we called on all allies to invest more, and the good news is that European allies are now investing more. So EU efforts on defense that provides more resources and also new capabilities, that is something that NATO strongly welcome because we have been calling for that for a long period of time. We also welcome then the delivery or provide when European allies provide more capabilities. But of course, these capabilities has to be also available for NATO missions and operations. And we also have a long list, what we call capability targets in NATO, defining what kind of capabilities different NATO allies, also of course European allies, should provide, and we expect the European allies to meet those capability targets. Then NATO has over the last years focused very much on increased readiness of forces. We have tripled the size of the NATO response force, available for the whole of NATO of course, to 45,000. And these are troops and forces that can move quickly, be deployed quickly, air forces, land forces, and naval forces. They exercise together, they operate together, and they have a common command structure. So of course, these high readiness forces of NATO are extremely important for all allies and also European allies. We welcome the increased efforts by EU allies on defense, but NATO will of course remain the cornerstone for European security. 80% of NATO's defense spending comes from non-EU allies, and non-EU allies also play a key role, for instance, when it comes to our increased presence in the eastern part of the alliance. 3 of the 4 battle groups in the eastern part of the alliance are led by non-EU allies, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. So I think it's obvious that we need not Europe alone or North America, United States alone. We need Europe and North America together to stand together in a much more challenging and difficult security environment. We need strategic solidarity, Europe and North America working together, and that's the message. And in that context, we also, of course, welcome more European efforts on defense spending, on providing new capabilities.
Secretary General, do you think that the Russian military build-up at the Ukraine in order to have consequences on the outstanding decisions on the Nord Stream 2 project? And how do you see the latest Russian anti-satellite missile test? Thank you.
So we have been informed by the United States on the Russian anti-satellite test that actually destroyed a satellite as part of a test, and this has created a lot of debris, which is now a risk to the International Space Station, also to the Chinese space station. So this was a reckless act by Russia to actually shoot down and destroy a satellite as part of a test of an anti-satellite weapon system. NATO has developed a space policy, not least to address the challenges we see in space. NATO will not weaponize space, but the satellites, the capabilities NATO allies have in space are extremely important for what is going on Earth. Communications, navigation, early warning, all of that is dependent on space capabilities. So of course, when Russia now tests new space weapons, when they test it also by actually destroying a space capability, creating a lot of dangerous debris, that is concerning both because the debris actually poses a risk to civilian activity in space, but it's also of concern because it demonstrates that Russia is now developing new weapon systems that can shoot down satellites, can destroy important space capabilities for basic infrastructure on Earth, like communications, like navigation, or like early warning of missile launches.
Secretary General, should we wait in Riga, Georgia, NATO-Georgia and NATO-Ukraine Commission meeting, or what formats will be in Latvia? And also, what is the main message from you and from NATO by this invitation?
We will meet with Ukraine and Georgia and together, and I very much look forward to meet with both the Foreign Minister of Ukraine and the Foreign Minister of Georgia. I met with Foreign Minister Kuleba yesterday of Ukraine, and of course this will be a possibility for allies to reiterate their strong support both to Ukraine and to Georgia and the whole Black Sea region. Both of these countries are Black Sea countries, is of great importance for NATO, and therefore the close partnership with these countries is something we highly value.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.